Hey guys, it's Ollie from Rad Season. I'm super excited to be joined today by ice climber, extreme expedition leader, professional volcano zipliner, and the founder of One Axe Pursuits and One Axe Extreme, Frederick Schuett. Fred, thanks for coming on the show.
No, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
No worries. So, whereabouts are you at the moment? You're over in Ontario, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Ontario. I'm just in Minalora, Ontario, so just a little bit northwest of Toronto. We're in a bit of a snow line, so we have lots of snow here. I think Toronto right now has almost no snow, but we have a foot on the ground almost.
Wow! And what's the situation been? Have you been able to get out? And can you guys still?
Yeah, we were operating. So we had just private groups. So we'd have private groups coming out doing things. Up until just recently, I think now we just got a thing saying that now it's like a stay-at-home kind of order in this area. Right. So now I guess there's a bit more of an outbreak over the holidays than they expected. So now it's a stay-at-home order and only essential businesses and stuff like that. So we might lose a little bit of our ice climbing season because we're just getting ready to start ice climbing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is. So we'll just have to go with the flow and hopefully we can get this out of the way and just get back to normal life again.
Yeah, that's it, huh? Yeah, I mean, we just gotta. Yeah, I mean, it's good that we can sort of still. I mean, yeah, I guess still go outside, but obviously, the whole impact that it's having, and yeah, hopefully, we just got to ride it through, right? And
yeah, there's not much we can do right now at this point, at least as public, right? We can't. We're not in any big decision making place, so I can't really do anything but complain, really.
Fred, I'd love to jump back to the beginning and kind of, talk about how you got into climbing and, where you grew up and how it all began.
Yeah, I started really young. I was just a lot of kids, probably. I see a lot of kids have the kind of, you want to explore, you want to get outside, and maybe not as much now, but when I was younger, everyone was outside doing stuff, right? Some people prefer more sports. I preferred more like adventure and exploration and figuring out new spots. And if there's a wilderness area close to me, I would ride my bike there and I would explore it all and figure it all out, right? And know that area, have it mapped out in my head. And then if there's nothing exciting there, I'd go to the next wilderness area and try and figure, just explore and climb. And I like places that had rocks, things that had vistas. You could climb to the top and look out and you could see really far. I like that. And for Ontario, there's not a lot of places with that. So I kind of seeked out those places.
Nice. And I mean, were you kind of doing that on your own, or were you were you with friends in the area and, school buddies and stuff? And
yeah, this is really young. We're talking now, I'm like 9 or something, 9 or even younger. There's some cliffs by my house, not big, like 10, 15 feet, 3 to, 6, 7 meters. And we would play there and have like forts and stuff like that. So we're at a very young age. That's what I was doing with just a few of my neighborhood friends or high school or elementary school friends.
Yeah.
And close to me, there's a conservation area. It's about 20 kilometers away. But by the time I was 12, I was riding my bike there and back because it had really big cliffs and caves. And the cliffs there got to about maybe 80 feet or so. And there's a lot of ones, lots of caves. So we'd be like, I remember my dad would drop us off as children. Like I'd be like 8 and my dad would drop me and my buddy off, a friend of mine. And he would just leave us at the conservation area for like 5 or 6, 7 hours and come back and pick us up later in the day. And he'd just be like, be back here at like 5 o'clock. Right. And I'll pick you up. So, and we loved that. Awesome. We begged him like, can you drive us there today, please? And by the time I turned 11 or 12, we were able to bike there. So we'd just get on our bikes and it'd take us an hour and a half probably to bike there. But it was great training in the future for me in the future to be like, endurance training almost at a young age, going on these long bike rides. And then we hike for, 5, 6 hours, scramble around the rocks and then come and then bike home. Right. So
yeah,
lots of little adventures just as a kid, really. And that those cliffs, that's where the rock climbing started and the ice climbing, because we were so vertical, we could only hike around the backs of them and we'd scramble up easy stuff that we thought, we could probably do without falling, or if we got scared, we'd back off. And I don't know if I think you mentioned in your thing that it was when I grabbed my dad's extension cord that he was throwing out. And
which you found in the garage or something, right? And
yeah, he was gonna throw it away and had some nicks in it. And I was like, this is like because we didn't have any big ropes kicking around my house, and neither did my friend. Like, little pieces of rope to tie stuff to your car, but not that you couldn't rock climb with it. And this seemed like it was long enough you could rock climb with it, not that we knew how to. So we just kind of would throw it down the cliffs and would like hand over hand up this extension cord up the cliffs and stuff. Again, at certain degrees, we would be like, that's too steep. But it kind of let us get steeper, and eventually we realized we need a real rope because this isn't working. And so it just started like that, and it started with that, and then it became hardware rope. So we go to the hardware store and get rope. Or a friend of mine, his dad had like an electrician's harness for like working on hydro poles or something, and he had some polypropylene rope, which is like the yellowed braided stuff, the twisted stuff.
Yeah.
It was braided, so which is a little better in the sense of texture and feel, but it was really thin, like maybe thinner than a finger. And then we took that out, and that was like, I don't know how long that rope was, but we did some fun stuff with that. We'd lower each other off cliffs with the rope and stuff. Like, very scary, really. Looking back at it now, I was like, what are we doing? None of us died or got seriously injured, but there's some funny stories back then. And that's when we started ziplining. So I'm like 13.
Oh, it was back then when you started doing it.
Oh yeah, we did my first zip lines when I was like 12, 13. Yeah.
Okay. And would you guys just put you would put everything together and?
Yeah, our first zip line had a steel rod and a big steel wheel, and it was just like you had to feed the rope through it. And my friend made it in his garage, right? He got like a steel axle from like a remote control, like he did race remote control cars and stuff. So and they had like big trucks. So anyway, he had his big steel axle, and he bent some like an S hook, and he put on this big wheel. It looked kind of like a clothesline wheel, but it was steel, not aluminum. And that was we fed it through the rope. We stretched it between trees about 30 feet off the ground, about 100 foot long. We had to tie ropes together to get these zip lines where they were along the length we wanted them. And for some reason, we always did in the wintertime. I think we were a little more bored. And there was more snow back then, so we could like pile up snow and be like, if you crash, you hit the snow. And that wouldn't hurt us much. So yeah, the first zip line was that. And then it was like within a year, we're doing like 100 foot off the ground, and they're not really zip line, kind of zip lines, but they're like just tension rope systems. So there's like straight across between two cliffs.
Yeah.
But usually you would zip really fast when you sat on it or held onto the thing because the ropes would stretch like crazy. Because they're just like Canadian Tire, like really cheap, like hardware rope, right?
Yeah.
Not designed for what we were doing. It was totally dangerous. Do not recommend at all.
And then when you were like, so you're around 18 when you first went ice climbing, was that right?
No, actually, yeah, I was going to mention that. But I started ice climbing probably around 16. So at 16, I'd been rock climbing. We got some ropes. We got some marine ropes. When I was about 15, my friends came back from Toronto with some like climbing magazines and like a mountain equipment co-op like mail order catalog, which was like the holy grail of gear and stuff. I had no idea they even like where you could buy that stuff. It was just like you'd see it in a TV show. Like I remember phoning my friends and my aunts and uncles in all the different cities and asking them, "Can you look in the phone book under climbing equipment or ropes? Like, is there someone there that?" Because there's no internet, right? So it was very hard. And if you didn't know someone that climbed, and there was no climbing gyms, so you couldn't just go to a climbing gym and ask someone. Well, I guess there was in Toronto, but I didn't live in Toronto. I couldn't ride my bike to Toronto, so I never got to Toronto very often. So it was a bit of a slow go. I would have got into it quicker if I could have. But yeah, it was interesting how it kind of started out that way. But I think at 16, I took official rock climbing courses through a college. So at 16, someone sent me something saying, because we were doing it on our own. We were like made my own. I actually sewed my own climbing harness. Like from what I could see in the magazines, I'd go to like a fabric store and buy the straps, and I had my mom's sewing machine, so I would like sew it up. Oh, it was totally scary. Like, really. I was like, oh, I see how they kind of bar tack that. I'll do the same with my, sewing machine and yeah. So it was really interesting. I kind of was making gear at a really young age, and we were climbing in that for like a year or more. And we didn't really understand how the pulley system worked. So I actually bought like hay bale pulleys and put them up the cliff. and like ran the rope through it. And we'd like, as someone climbed, someone pulled other rope and we'd wrap it around her body and stuff. Like it was really primitive.
Yeah. Was it scary? I mean, was it a bit, I mean,
no, we thought it was
a bit sketchy doing that? Were you like,
yeah, I invited my dad out to see what we were doing. He was like, "Oh, this looks way safer than what I did when I was a kid." Like he was like, "Well, we didn't even use ropes, so it was good," because he fell once in the same location where I was exploring. He used to go there as a child because he grew up in Guelph as well, and he said, yeah, he fell there once and got really hurt, and that kind of scared him again. Like he had a bit of a fear of heights after that. So he was like, "Oh, it's great. You guys use some ropes, and oh, it looks really safe. You got a harness on. You're not just tying around your armpits or something." You got so. So my dad didn't really help like deter us at all. He like encouraged us, like, "Oh, it looks good, guys." And so,
and then
official.
Yeah, and so when like you know, and then like from there, I mean, there's an interesting story of how you got your nickname, right? I mean,
yeah,
was that the first kind of introduction to ice climbing, or was it like, so you went from rock climbing and then onto
yeah,
that?
so rock climbing, once I learned how to rock climb, I immediately got into ice climbing because right away I started to know people. Because on that course, you meet the climber, like the instructor, and you meet a bunch of other people. So immediately I knew people that now dabbled in ice climbing. So I was right there. And I had money, I had a job, so I bought all the gear. And right away I was like buying used ice axes from, I kind of started to get to know the community more and know where to go. There's a place in Waterloo called Adventure Guide, like a store, kind of like a little Mount Kummet co-op. And that's where my go-to place was to get gear. And I bought like some old ice axes off the guy. So at 16, I think I was already ice climbing. As soon as like within that day, like that year, I just like shot from like homemade, rope systems to like professional rope systems. Like I just bought everything and I took all the courses in 1 year. And then I was like very much safer and I understand how to do it. And then I was ice climb right away, which is why when I went on the mountaineering course at 18, I had envisioned like some really spectacular 1,000-foot ice climb or something. Because I'd already climbed pretty technical ice, and I was strong as a young person. So I was climbing very steep and like going back onto icicles and hanging and climbing the icicle to get back on the wall, like really aggressive stuff. Like, so on the mountaineering course, just as a child in my head, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be like so extreme because it's going to be better than Ontario, right? It's out west. But then out west, it was like day 7 of the course, we did the side of a glacier. So they lowered us a few hundred feet down a glacier. Very steep. It was fairly steep, not quite vertical, but it was pretty steep. And we had to climb the 200 feet back up. And I was like, oh, I thought you guys, I kind of told the guide, I didn't complain really that much, but when right before the guide lowered me down, I had a relationship with him by then. So I was kind of like, oh, when you guys said ice climbing, I thought you guys meant like real ice climbing, like not like the funny hill of ice climbs, right? And the guy was like laughing because he kind of knew me by then, right? And so then he was like, oh, let me see one of your ice axes there for a second. And they were the mountaineering axes, so they're pretty big. And they had like a strap around them to help hold on, since they're just straight, could slip off of them. And I thought he was just going to fix the strap or something. So I gave him the ice axe, and then he takes it and he sticks it in the snow behind him, and then just starts to lower me down with only the one ice axe. So then I was like, what are you doing? Well, and so he lowered me 200 feet down, like 60 meters down this glacier, which is almost completely vertical. And then he's like, have fun, get him back up now, because he knew I needed a challenge, right? Which was perfect. And then I climbed the whole thing quite easily, actually, because I had the crampons, so I was front pointing. I just had to really balance myself while I re-swung the tool to keep moving. And then I kind of got the rhythm going, and I climbed up. And then everyone was watching from another angle. We were practicing other mountaineering skills on the glacier. And the glacier kind of curves. So you can kind of practice your ascending techniques and look over and see the person ice climbing. And everyone noticed I was climbing with only one tool. And everyone else was struggling because they had never ice climbed before. So if you had never ice climbed, that would be 200-foot climb on the side of that glacier would have been very difficult, right? And tiring. But for me, I was just like motoring up the thing with one ice axe near the top for sure, because it started to slowly level, like kind of round a bit. So it got more gentle.
Yeah.
Anyway, so everyone called me One Axe after that. And it stuck. Like no one called me by my name
Oh, really?
More. It was all, hey, one axe, you know, one axe, one axe.
That's
So
so
it was
good.
funny. So when I came back to Ontario, I put one axe. I wrote one axe on my gear instead of like my last name or something. Yeah.
And when so like were you working then at that time? Like so like or did
Yeah, I
you?
would have been in high school, I think.
Okay.
I had lots of different, I think, yeah, you're asking what I had lots of different jobs.
Yeah.
None of them were really adventurous in that sense. I did a lot of, I think at that time I did some drafting work for a company. I actually started babysitting. I did a lot of babysitting when I was younger because I had a lot of younger siblings and I played well with kids. So right away, and I played with the kids in the neighborhood. So I got a lot of babysitting jobs right away because I was like the fun guy that would play with the kids actually. And then one of the dads knew I was in architecture programs in school. And then he saw some of my work and then he actually hired me to do drafting for him.
Okay.
That was pretty cool. So I was doing like water flow charts for like rivers, and because back then he said he was hiring university students to do these on computers, which I didn't have a computer to do that, but I could do it by hand better and faster than the kids could do it on a computer. So he was like, this is great. So yeah, it was huge. Like they had to be huge sheets. So even like people would print it off and like he'd like unfold these monster sheets. So the thing is I could do it on bigger paper by hand, and then the old printers could print out.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I did that, and I had lots of different jobs really. like most kids, you're just moving around.
Yeah.
I was a DPD at one point, the guy biking around with ice cream, you know, selling ice cream. You know, I was giving out flyers when I was 12 or 13 to like for pizza or something. You know, I had lots of jobs. I worked at a hospital in high school. And in like the housekeeping department and the laundry departments, like different departments in the hospitals because they paid really well. And those were really actually good jobs, like in the sense of like, you know, they helped pay for all my gear I needed to buy because they paid quite well at the hospitals. Yeah.
And when was the turning point when you thought, okay, like that you wanted to then make a job or a career out of like the outdoor adventures and kind of?
Yeah, it came about kind of by surprise. I didn't think I could make a career at it, or maybe I could work as a guide. I never thought of starting my own business, and not in Ontario. I envisioned myself buying like a van and being a total climbing bum, living out of the van and driving out west and working for a guiding company out west. I just foresaw that would be my life for like in my 20s. I thought for sure I'm going to leave high school. I'm going to buy a van or whatever. I'm going to throw my camp because I was a big camper by then, a lot of camping trips and winter camping trips. So sleeping in a van was like a luxury, really. So I'd buy a van, I'd soup it all up, and I'd drive out west, and I'd get a job working for some climbing company. That's what I envisioned. And what happened was a local climbing company or a climbing gym here in Ontario asked if I could help them start an outdoor climbing program for the gym. Because I was known as the guy in the gym that does all the outdoor climbing and takes people out all the time anyway, and knew all that stuff. So he hired me to start a company for him, or start the outdoor part of the company. I started to do it for him. I looked into insurance, I looked into permits and where we can do it and getting permission from landowners. And I never decided to do that for myself. I just, you know, he was paying me to do it. So I'll take all the time. It took about a month.
Right.
Day working, figuring stuff out, calling people, emailing people, visiting people. And then in the end, he didn't want to do the business. After my month of work doing all this for him, he didn't want to do it. He said it was too big of an investment for him at this point, and he didn't think it was going to be profitable enough to put that much forth right away to start it.
Right.
This was a long time ago, so I can't remember exactly, but I remember being a little bit upset because he had promised me it would go. This was supposed to be my job, right? I was going to run it for him for the first year or so, and then I didn't see myself sticking around. I just thought I'd get it started for him and train some of his staff, and then I'd leave and do my thing out west or whatever. But then he didn't want to do it. And I had canceled all my trips I had planned that year because I thought I was going to be working for him. And then my girlfriend at the time, which is my wife now, said, you know what? Why don't you just do it? Like you would never have done all this work for yourself, but now you have it right in front of you. And why don't you just start the business? You got all the ropes, you got all the helmets, you got all the harnesses really already. for small groups, just
Mhm.
do it yourself. And I was like, like, I guess I could. Like, I don't know. Yeah, let's start. Let's try it. Like, I wasn't really a business savvy person. I'd always worked for other people. So but Krista she has all the, anything I'm not good at, she's like, that's her expertise. So really, we kind of complement each other well. So she's very more into the business side and
Mhm.
coaching people and like consultant, like people will get her to consult them and stuff on their businesses and stuff. So she said, together we could do this, because by myself, I probably would have failed. But she's the business side. I'm the guide side. So together we were like, it was great and it took off. And
And,
yeah.
was that the start then of One Axe Pursuits? That was
It was.
the
It was the
okay.
start. The two of us starting on a cell phone and home computer, the two of us,
Yeah.
an apartment kind of thing, in my parents' basement. I stored all my gear down there. And we started really small with just small groups. And my friends became my guides that assisted me, my other climbing friends, right? Yeah.
Awesome. And this is your 20th year, right? So this is
Yeah, this
sort
is
of
the 20th year now, and we've moved on. We've moved cities, and we have tons of locations and tons of programs, and it kind of just built on itself.
okay.
And we had quality programs and good instruction, and people liked us, and we were able to grow, and our name got out there.
Mhm.
And yeah.
And was it sort of just starting off with like small groups to begin with, like
Yeah, it
climbing, and
started off
then
mostly rock climbing. So we
okay.
had like anchor courses, like how to start, kind of the course I wanted when I was young, how
Yeah.
to climb on your own. Like, take this course, it's 2 days. They'll teach you all the equipment, all the safety stuff, how all the knots, all the, everything about the equipment you need to know and where to get it. And then you can practice all the setups, and then you can start it as a hobby for yourself. So that was one course that we ran, an anchor course. And then we ran like just rock climbing, and we ran I think the first year was probably just rock climbing and rappelling. A lot of people back then, adventure races were really big, so people needed to learn to rappel and get a certificate to do these adventure races, to do the rappel parts. So we did a lot of rappel training back then too. And that was the first year. The second year, we were able to incorporate our Zipline Extreme program, which is very different than most zip lines. It's actually like interactive, where you're like rappel off the middle of a zip line 80 feet down into a river. So you have to learn to rappel, to then do the zip line, to then rappel off the zip line into the gorge. It's pretty, like, everyone, even now, people are just like, wow, I've zip lined all over the world, but that was very unique. It's a very different. So it took me a year to get the additional permissions to run that program. I needed a special location for that, with high cliffs in 2 locations. So I needed a gorge where the rock climbing locations only had 1 cliff. So it wasn't really what we wanted. Couldn't really do it there. And then I think took another year or 2 before we could run ice climbing, just because the equipment was so expensive, and I needed to outfit people with equipment. And we started pretty small, so we didn't, and our insurance was pretty high, so we didn't have tons of money kicking around to go buy, like an arsenal of ice climbing boots and an arsenal of crampons and all the ice axes. It was like it was just like, wow, it's a lot of, like, the boots. I think like the ones we have are like about $300 a boot kind of thing. So, and we have like 45 pairs of boots, so it's like a lot. It adds up, right?
Yeah.
But obviously we didn't start. I think we started with 20 pairs of boots, but it was like, wow, it was a bit of an investment to jump into ice climbing.
And going from so doing like those kind of ziplining expeditions and setting that all up, where was the idea for then sort of taking that to the next level and like ziplining volcanoes and sort of, going overseas to all these locations? Where did that come from?
Yeah, it happened with so there was a TV show, or someone pitching a show, and they wanted to zip line over this crater of fire called the Gateway to Hell. I think you mentioned that, in Turkmenistan. And I had done a lot of, we kind of started getting known in the film and event industry as like rock climbing, ice climbing, mountaineering, zip line. I say zip line, but any tension rope system. So zip line usually has to have gravity to work, where a tension rope system may not. It may be manually operated and stuff, but same people vision zip lining as ropes pulled tight with pulleys. So yeah, we'll call it zip lining. So in the event industry, so we got lots of calls here and there for different TV shows, and in different special events. Like you mentioned Richard Branson, we had set up a zip line. That one was a true zip line where he zip lined down downtown Toronto to launch Virgin Mobile, stuff like that. So
were they just approaching you? You were like almost becoming the go-to guy for these?
Yeah, like I'm sure
there
there are people to call, but like we get calls once in a while. And that one with the Richard Branson one was interesting because I have no idea how they found out about us. Because that was our first big stunt. Like we did some little TV shows like YTV and TVO, like little kids shows, or what these little television shows. But it's like a one-day gig, and it's like they go rock climb and you help them, and they go rappelling and you teach them how to rappel. Very very simple stuff. But that was a big thing. Like we're working with engineers downtown Toronto. I'm meeting with all these big companies about rigging this zip line for Richard Branson. He's like worth more than the city of Toronto, like he can't get hurt, and I was just like, how did you guys find out about us? Like, why? And they just said, we heard you were the best. That's like all they said. We heard you're the best, so we needed you to be on the job. And I was like, from who? Like, I have no idea. But the fact that we set up and take down our zip lines every day, and we can set up multiple zip lines in different locations, that makes us pretty unique. Because most zip lines, you'll go to a zip line place, they'll set them up in advance. They'll take a year to set up all these zip lines, and they leave them up, and they just inspect them for the next 5 years, and they keep changing over parts, but they never actually take them down and reset them all up again. Especially not on a daily basis. Where my staff, because we operate in public locations, we can't leave them set up very often. So we'll set them up, take them down. The next day we'll go out, set it all up again, rig it, tear it all down again. So we are pretty skilled at being fast and efficient at doing that. And the nice thing is too, every piece of equipment gets inspected because we literally set everything up. So from a safety standpoint, it's pretty good. So someone must have took our Zipline Extreme course and was like, these guys know what they're doing, and had done other zip lines and realized that we kind of are the next level up of ziplining, in the sense that we're interactive and it's instructional. You have to learn stuff, not just like how to clip a carabiner. Like you have to actually learn real skills. So somehow we got, into that gig with Richard Branson, and that was a big push.
And was the documentary before that then? So
that was long after.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was that was just like our start into special events and film and stuff, and doing bigger commercials and stuff. But the Turkmenistan one, I actually had a client of mine on a mountaineering course say, there's a friend of his that runs this TV show, and he's a host for the show, Angry Planet. And the show's over, but there's this pit of fire in Turkmenistan, which he wants to go to and zip line over this pit of fire. And they want to know if I could train them to set up on their own, because they didn't have a budget to do it for the TV show. So he thought they wanted to do it. He thought, why don't we just go to Turkmenistan? We'll rig it, we'll film it, and we'll try and sell it to a network or something, right? Or who knows what. He just wanted to do it, right? And the TV show was not going to pay for it anymore. The season was over. So then he sent me pictures of this pit of fire, and a lot of people know about it now, but back then nobody really knew about it at all. Like very few people knew about it. So I watched a couple of videos. Only videos about it was like a couple tourists like shooting like their phone video. I don't know if they were even videos on the phone, but anyway, they took a little video, throw on YouTube. So there's no professional videos of this thing, no dimensions, no nothing. It was really raw, and it's scary, right? To look at this fire. And I was kind of like, there's no anchors. It's just like a complete desert. So I was like, I don't know if I could probably teach you guys how to rig this, but it'd take a while. Building the anchors will be difficult because you're in the desert. Building tripods and stuff. But then I saw the pit of fire, and I thought, and I saw a little bit about what his friend was doing, George. And I saw him in a heat suit touching lava and stuff. And I was like, well, he's got that heat suit. I know a lot of guys in the fire department, rigging rescue kind of department. And I thought, if we could get him like the gas mask, the SABA unit, so he could breathe and not worried about poisonous gases and stuff, I could lower him right in the pit of fire, right at the bottom, and he could walk around in there. And I kind of was like, that would be way cooler. So I called George, which was George Karinas, which was the friend of Peter that we all got connected. And I told George, like, I can teach you how to zip line and go across it, but if I went with you, I could rig it that you can go down to the bottom, walk around, and I can haul you up and then pull you out if there's any trouble. So no one else gets in danger. Like, you're not left down in the pit of fire, right? I can get you out. And then he was kind of like, are you serious? Like, I don't understand how this can work. Like, how does the pulleys work? I was like, well, it's complicated. That's why I would have to go. I can't teach you guys how to do this one. It's a little too complicated, and I'd need we need additional people. We need a couple more people on the team. And yeah, then he came over like the next day. Literally, he was like, I'm driving to your house tomorrow. Show me how this works. And I rigged it, and I showed him how the pulleys worked, and he was like, kind of blew his mind a little bit and was like, oh, this changes everything. Now I can get I'm sure someone will want to pay for this now. Like, if I go to the bottom and walk around in the pit of fire, it's not just, you're not just doing a ride over top anymore. Yeah. Now my life is like really in danger. People want that, right? So then we pitched it, and a lot of TV shows wanted it, and National Geographic was one of them. So we decided, let's go with National Geographic. They kind of funded the expedition. They filmed it. They made a documentary about it. So that it was kind of like just the fluke how that happened. They never, it wasn't like National Geographic was looking for someone to rig this. It's more like there was someone looking to rig it. They found me. They asked me. I gave them, a better idea of how to do it, and then it took off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and yeah.
was it kind of like with the equipment that you needed for those heats? Like, was that different? Like, yeah. Did you need special stuff? I mean, were you creating and the suit as well? I mean, was that like? Yeah.
So the suit that George used was your typical metal worker suit. So someone that worked with molten metal that needs to like open the door to like a big furnace, like that's the suit they would use. Proximity suit for heat. So that was the suit he had. It was, and if you saw any pictures, kind of bulky, had a big helmet, it actually went over top of another. You'd wear a climbing helmet or a hard hat, and then this would go over top like a big bag. It worked, but it wasn't really designed for what we were doing, in the sense of going over top of the fire and the flames, because the flames would come up underneath you, and actually you'd feel them, like the heat going inside the sleeves and the pant legs and stuff. You'd feel the air going up there. Kind of like the heat.
Like how hot is it there?
So I think the hottest we picked a spot that was had at least the amount of heat as we could find to do the traverse for George, and the hottest spot was about 100 degrees Celsius. Wow. So you could boil water there, but so you didn't want to linger in the hot zone too long. No. I think George was able to stand in that for maybe getting close to 5 minutes or something, and his hands started burning because the heat was like going through the glove and going up the sleeve, and he was like, his arm was burning. He had to get out of there. Wow. But when he went down into the pit, it was less heat because all the heat's going up. So then it was more like approaching giant bonfires. So the closer you got, the hotter it got, and you back up, it would get cooler. So he could just gauge how close to get to. And there's one flame down there that's really huge, and that was, I think he got 400 degrees Celsius on his little probe that he had, and that's as close. As close as he could get. Like, even in the suit, you could see him like backing up like you would if you didn't have a suit on to normal fire. He's doing the same thing in that heat suit to this monster flame. So it was cool. And what was really interesting is after that, all the scientific data that we figured out from that and all the measurements got uploaded to the internet. Mm-hmm. So now if you look up the pit of fire in Turkmenistan, there's tons, like paragraphs and paragraphs of all these details, everything about it. And most of that was figured out on our expedition. We interviewed geologists from the area. We measured it. We took samples. We had heat probes. We took gas meters probes down with us. So everything that's on the internet now about that crater of fire was from our expedition, which is really neat.
That's cool. And were you guys, I mean, like, because it's so unique. I mean, like going there and doing that, like, you must have been pretty nervous, like rigging that all up, and were you doing a lot of tests and stuff like that? Or
yeah, and you mentioned the equipment some of the equipment was different. A lot of it was the same, but the ropes had to be a heat resistant rope, so they're made of Technora, which is similar to Kevlar. It's kind of like almost a different brand, almost. Yeah. So very similar in the structure of material. So that we got sponsorships. So when we tell people what we're doing, that's the nice thing now that when I do these really cool volcano stunts and stuff, usually people are more than happy to give me stuff because they're like, what? You want to use our gear on that volcano? Like, yeah, we'll give you some stuff. Right. So which is good because it's really expensive. So we got full sponsorship for ropes and for that expedition anyway. And the rope's really thin. So that was the thinnest rope I've ever used to set up high lines before. Mm-hmm. That's the thickness of your pinky finger. Like These are really skinny, like just a little thicker than like about the thickness of, maybe thinner than a Sharpie marker. Like these are really skinny ropes, 7 millimeters per rope. So that was nerve wracking. I think for George too. Like when he zipped, like I'm usually doing 1/2-inch ropes. So when we're on these little skinny ropes, it just looks unsafe. Like in my head, little warnings going off, like, you know, like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, dental floss. Is this too thin? But the structure of the material is way stronger. It's stronger than steel tensile strength. So even though it's thin, you almost have to imagine you're looking at a steel cable, not a rope, because strength is closer to steel than it is to nylon or polyester. But yeah, we were nervous. We decided when I rigged that high line over the fire that I had it rigged 3 days in a row, and I took it down every night, set it back up in the morning. Like I didn't want to, I was kind of like, I don't know, the ropes should be fine in 100 degrees Celsius overnight, but I don't want to add more exposure. What if something happens overnight that a bigger flux of flame or gas comes out? And so we were pretty careful with what we did, and going up to it the first time, the heat was quite intense. We were actually all got a little nervous and was like, wow, this is a lot. Like we could barely get close to the edge. It was like you can barely stand at the edge to look in. It was so hot at the pit of fire. So that was a bit of a scary moment. We're like, did we come here for nothing? Because can we even this is a little bit intimidating, right? But since then, now that's like child's play now.
And then like after that, was that when you guys like someone got in contact with you to go to Ethiopia? Is that right? There's a lava lake over there. And
it was actually a Brazilian celebrity or TV personality. She wanted to do she's kind of getting her name out there. Karina Oliani is her name. And she kind of was trying to make a name for herself. And outside of Brazil, people don't really know who she is because most of her shows are in Portuguese. So she's done Everest twice now. She's a medical doctor, helicopter pilot. She's like she has a pretty good resume of cool things, right? And she's always doing these things. She like volunteers around the world globally for her medicine, but then she's like climbing Everest and doing all these TV shows, adventurous stuff. So she wanted to do something again to get her name out there bigger. She saw George in the pit of fire and she thought, that's amazing. I love that. I want to be the first woman to do that. So it actually started like that. And she contacted me and said, she saw my name on the dock. She tracked me down in my company and said, I want to be the first woman. How do I do this? How do we make this happen? And in the end, we couldn't do it because the government wouldn't let us do it.
Oh, really?
Turkmenistan denied us. They said we could do it. And then very close to the expedition, they said we couldn't. So it was kind of a sad moment. We're like, what? Like I literally built like these heat suits and everything to do it for her. And now we can't do it. Like they're not letting us in the country to do it anymore. Well, they said they could do it, but they can't film it for TV. But that TV station's paying for it. So if we don't do it for TV, we're not going, right? So I said at the last minute, let's not give up. I said, I've had my eye on doing some stuff over volcanoes for a while now.
Yeah.
Let's try to use that, and we have all the fun and everything already. Let's try and move that towards a volcano and see if we can do something that's never been done before, ever. Instead of a woman's first, let's do a world's first, first person in the world to do it. And no one can take that from you. You're not like now she's always like the first woman or whatever. It's like now you're the first person. Like there's no more. There's nothing higher, right? The world first and the first person to ever do it. So she really liked that idea. So so eventually Ethiopia seemed like the location to do it. I had George Karinas, which was the guy lower in the pit of fire. He kind of gave me some contacts because he goes to volcanoes too with his TV shows and his explorations. So he kind of helped me kind of figure out which volcano was the best one to go to at this time because they're always changing. The lava is always up and down. And so it was a bit of a scramble. And we head to Ethiopia and we pulled off that zip line over the lava.
And how was that? I mean, after the previous expeditions, were you feeling more comfortable with that? You were like, or is it every time it's like it's a new place, it's a new thing? Like
it was a new place. It made the pit of fire look like a campfire. It was like wow, like now we're at a volcano. This is like This is a big difference. Like they're much scarier. Like the lava is like the real deal, right? And the thing's rumbling. It's like had like these little tiny vents inside the crater that are like shooting out like gas and like flames. It looks like flames, but it's just superheated air. It's so hot you can see flames, but there's not actually a flame there. And it's roaring at you, making all these like rumbling noises that you'd expect, like really scary sounds. It's like it's talking to you. It's like it's making all these, and the ground's shaking. And you're just like, wow, this is really scary now. Yeah. So she right away, as soon as she saw that, and we're now anchoring into lava, like dried lava rock, so which is all bubbly and aerated, and it's crumbling as we're walking. We're like falling through the lava, like the dried lava, almost like it kind of dries in layers because it has like air bubbles in it, and it's all just falling apart. And she's like, "It's not going to happen. There's no way. How can we anchor to this stuff?" Right? And she just even going to there, I don't think she had tons of faith that it was going to happen, because she planned all these other things to do in Ethiopia too for the TV show. And she like, go to the acid lake, go to the salt beds and stuff. Because she figured, well, if the volcano doesn't go, she'll get some cool pictures of her in the heat suit by the lava. But she's like, she didn't want to give like a week to rig this thing, to have it fail. So I was on a time crunch to pull it off. So not only did I have to do something no one's ever done before, I had to do it in, I don't know, I think I had like 35 hours to do it by myself. Wow. Or maybe less. It was, and I had to sleep too, right? I'm like, so she said, "Oh, it's not going to happen. There's no way." She's walking, it's like she's falling through the ground. She's like, "There's no way we can anchor here. This looks like so hot." And there's another man on the ground that sent me some footage of there, and he's a volcano expert as well. And he said, "There's no way you can zip line over this right now. It's too hot." So everyone was saying I couldn't do it. And I was like, I'll decide that for myself when we get, and then she's like, "We can't do it." She's all upset. And I'm just like, well, I haven't decided we can't do it yet. So I think I can still do it. So anyway, I had to work. It's in the hottest desert in the world. Yeah. One of them anyway, some debatable, maybe the second, but it was like 40 degrees Celsius during the day, full sun. The ground's like, I think I took temperature readings of the ground's like 70 degrees Celsius. Like it's that hot. Like the ground, just like the ground is giving off heat and the sun's hitting you. So most people just hide, but I had to rig all day. I had to like drill in and on the lava rock. I'm like busting the lava rock away to dig deeper to find more stable areas to anchor to and stuff.
How did you rig it? Were you just trying to find like,
well, I
sturdy ground, like sturdy areas where
I used mountaineering skills to build snow anchors. So in my mind, I was like, if I can build anchors in powder snow, I can build anchors in crappy rock, even if it's full of air and crumbling. It's still stronger than snow. So even if I have to use it I brought a lot of tools I kind of visualized I might have to do different things. So I brought glue and anchors, I brought steel rods, I brought expansion bolts, I brought kind of like rock tools for chipping rock. And so I thought, even if I have to shape the lava into like chunks to sling, like I would like it for ice, I'll do it. It just takes time.
Yeah.
So it's like hard work, right? So you're like sweating, and I'm like, the biggest thing I didn't want to like get heat exhaustion or something while I'm working. And no one else could really help me, because no one else really had the skills to help me. So they're just like watching me.
Everyone's just stepping back and go, Fred's got it.
You're like, okay, gonna pass you a tool, So in the end, and it was tricky. It was definitely, I would have liked to have more. And the one thing I didn't mention is, because Turkmenistan canceled our expedition to the Pit of Fire, we lost half our crew, because she lost a lot of money on that expedition that she couldn't regain. So to go to Ethiopia, she said, well, if we do go, there's only 4 of us going. So it's you, me, the video guy, the guy filming, and the drone pilot. So you got to do it all yourself. And I said, that's okay. I can do it. We'll make it work. Her videographer, the guy we're operating the camera, he was a climber too. So he's a rock climber. So he didn't have like all the rigging experience I did, but at least, if I needed a simple knot, and he had an idea of some rigging for rock climbing. And she's done a bit of rock climbing. She's done Everest. So again, she has a bit of knowledge too. but they weren't able to really help me on the ground. Every time I asked them to do something, they were like, "Oh, I don't know. Never done that before. Maybe I'll just let you do it. I don't want to do it wrong." So it was fun. It was funny, but
would you say that was like the craziest volcano experience that you've had? Like,
not the craziest, but it was definitely like, it was different, and it was a crunch. And we had to send out temperature probes beforehand to know where to set up the zip line. Like, it was, I think I was pretty impressed what we were able to pull off with who we had in the amount of time we had in the environment we were in at that scary look. Like, I was pretty like, wow, we actually pulled it off. Like I was thinking, like, we're going to run out of time. Like, I'm not going to have enough time to build these anchors. I had one side done. It took me 6 hours, I think, to find and drill and do temperature readings and map it out on my GPS and figure out where to do it. And I was like, that's like half the time already. Like, oh no, like, and we still have to get the ropes, tension it. We got to get this. Like, there's a lot of things that still have to happen. I don't know if we can do this in time, but we did it. We pulled it off. Worked through the night. Took a couple power naps. Kept rigging. Did some more power naps, and we were trying to get. And then we were an hour or two later than I wanted to be, because we didn't want the sun to be up yet. We wanted to do it in the dark still. But when we first did it, the sun was just coming up. The volcano looks way scarier at night, because the glow and the ominous light, and you can see those like heat vents like shooting out the heat, and it looks way scarier. So when we did it, it still looks scary, but if you dim the lights even more, it's like, whoa, it looks better. And it's so hot. As soon as that sun comes up in the desert, it just sucks your energy away. It's so hot, the desert heat, not a cloud in the sky, right? We pulled it off, did a great expedition. Everything was super safe, and figured out some pretty interesting things. I'm the only one that has done those kind of things over lava. So I got some extra, like, next, I'm getting flown to like New York or LA to like talk about other stunts that can be done over lava, because no one's ever done them before. And I'm the only one that knows how to do it and knows the temperatures, right? Because every time I would ask an expert in like the fire department or rope rigging, I'm like, what kind of temperatures do you think I'm going to get over lava? And they're all like, I have no idea. Like, we have no idea. Nobody's ever done this, right? So
were people start telling you that it can't be done, or
everyone thought I was insane. Everyone thought, why would you even dream about that? Like, nobody thinks like you. Like, no one would think to do it. And if they did, they'd bring like a huge team over there to do it, and they'd have all these scientists to figure it out. I'm like, well, I know what's safe and I know what's not safe. And if it's not safe, we won't do it, right? But at every point, even the people in the expedition were telling me we can't do this. And I was like, well, I haven't seen why we can't yet. I can imagine why we can't, but I don't actually see the evidence yet why we can't do it. So then I guess I'm like, let's just keep going forward. Like, we flew all the way here for nothing. I'm not going to give up and say, oh, it's too crumbly, I can't get anchors. I'm like, well, I teach people how to build anchors in snow and crappy crumbly ice that you can't put an ice screw in. So I'm like, well, if I can build an anchor in that, I can probably work with crumbly rock. Let's just play with it. I've never done it before, but I'm sure I can figure something out. And that's what we did. It took time and energy, but we figured it out. And now I have some really good ideas to do much better systems in the future. Now, when I go to these places, if I have bigger budget, I can bring in some really interesting things I've designed to anchor into lava rock and stuff, and for much bigger loads. Like, for a human load, that worked just fine, but for bigger loads or bigger expands, like the larger the expanse you have to do, the bigger the anchors have to be, the forces will be increased and stuff. And then what you want to do on the line might require more force, which requires better anchors than I could have produced with the equipment I had. But now I have, more knowledge on what to do. Yeah.
And so now, like, what's next? Like, what are you looking at? What's on your volcano bucket list, so to speak, or or if there's different expeditions that you want to do?
Yeah, there's a few things. So COVID has kind of thrown everything in a loop. So I had one real cool expedition. It was going to be a world first in a few different areas, and the heat suit I built too. I was the first one ever designed and build a lava suit too. So that heat suit that were in the pictures, like, I designed that, and I got sponsorships, and I'm sponsored by a company, Tex Tech, to help, and Carbon X they send me anything I need to build these suits, and I have access to their lab if I want to fly down there and test stuff, which is cool. And I had a cool expedition for Vanuatu to do something over lava there, a really explosive lava lake.
Okay. Yeah.
And in the end, it was probably good. I was in the process of selling that expedition to a few people, and the whole thing caved in on itself. The volcano, because they're erupting, and the eruption eventually just caused a landslide. Well, almost a bit of a whole earthquake. The whole island took some damage, but they all caved in on themselves and buried all the lava. So there's still lava there, but it's buried under. Now it's just like smoking pile of rocks at the bottom of the crater. So that kind of ruined that expedition. That was going to be really cool. I can't say what it was because it's, you know, I trying people to steal my ideas. But so then I got flown down to LA for a production company, and this one I can talk about now because A&E is they've said publicly that they're going to fund this thing. So Bello Knox, some people know Nick Wallenda. He's done the tightrope walks.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's done the Grand Canyon and Niagara Falls, and so he's getting a lot of press out there with Discovery Channel doing these tightrope walks. He hasn't beat the world record, but he's doing some really visual, cool locations. Now, one of the guys that trained him later in his life was named Bello Knox, which most people don't know his name because he works mostly in the circus industry. But he wants to beat the world record of the longest tightrope walk in the world, and he wants to do it over an erupting volcano in a heat suit, no safety at all. If he falls, he dies, falls into the volcano.
Wow.
So, and A&E, and this guy's not like totally reckless. You know, it is dangerous, definitely what he's trying to do, but he has the world record for the longest time spent on a tightrope. So he spent 8 hours on a tightrope somewhere. You know, I think it was like downtown New York or LA or something. So he's in the Guinness Book World Records for the longest time spent on a tightrope. And he's been tightroping since he was, you know, he could walk. I think he said since he was 5 years old, he's never fallen off a tightrope in his life. Because his dad always told him, he's like multiple generations of circus performers. His dad always told him, even when you practice, you treat it as your life's on the line, even if you're only 3 feet off the floor. You have to treat it like your life's on the line every time you're on that tightrope. You pretend that you're going to die every time. You never jump off and land on the floor. If you have to hold on with dear life and climb back on, you'll do that, but you never jump on the floor. You never get off. You just hold on and crawl off like you're going to die. So he says he's never fallen off in his life. So, and he has some cool stuff he's done. So his dad invented the wheel of fire, or I don't know what they call it. Like the two things that spin on fire and the guy's jumping around inside the circus.
Okay.
The wheel of death, if that's what they call it.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's done really cool stuff. So he wants to do this. And I've been kind of on the expedition planning end of it and the heat suit design end of it for him to do this volcano thing.
And have you thought about the locations? Like, are there a few kind of places
I think right now we're looking at Erta Ala volcano in Ethiopia, the same one I ziplined over. Okay. The reason is it's in a caldera. So think of it's kind of like a canyon. It's caldera. It's very low though. But it's a huge caldera. So a big, like small, shallow, but really wide canyon. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle, it's all like dried lava because sometimes the whole canyon fills with lava. And in the middle, there's a crater that's about 600 feet around that drops down, and the lava is always moving up and down the different depths in that crater. So, and because it's so long, it's long enough he can beat the world record, almost double it. Like he's not just going to beat it by a little bit. He's going to like double the length of it, but he's going to do it over a volcano, and he's going to do it in a heat suit and go through the smoke. So like he's just
to up the ante, right? Just to kind of take it to the next level.
He's doing what people don't even think about. Like trying to beat the world record of a tightrope walk is crazy enough, but then doing it at a volcano, well, that's really crazy. Well, doing it over the lava in the volcano, that's even worse. And then doing it in the heat suit, it's like, wow, he's like, no one's going to be able to touch this when he's done, right? It's going to be the last one ever that anyone even dreams of doing. So it'll be pretty cool. And he doesn't want any safety. And we've talked about, there'll be I was helping design some rescue scenarios. So if he falls and he doesn't want to continue, we still got to get him off the rope. But if he actually falls and he doesn't grab that line, then he'll fall. There's no backup for him. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So that's something coming up that I can talk about. And then there's a few other things I can't really talk about because they haven't been released to the public yet, as they're going to go, or they're not funded yet. So I'm kind of waiting. So if anyone else wants to fund a crazy volcano expedition, I have a few ideas. Or they want to be the one that does it, and so yeah. Sometimes VIP client. I've worked with the expeditions I was selling. My goal is I'm trying to sell them to different VIP clients, really, that want to have that world first. It's kind of like that person wants to go to Everest and do that cool thing that they've always dreamed about. But Everest to me is like, it's so done. It's like overdone. Mm-hmm. It's like the lineup now. Now there's a huge lineup going to the summit. Like it's not even a climb anymore. It's just like you're waiting in line to go. And then there's a lot of beginners on the mountain, which is understandable. So if you have the money and you got some endurance and the time, you can pay someone to try and take you up Everest, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to wouldn't it be great if I could get some of those people, get them off of that dangerous, wasteland volcano or mountain, it's a cool mountain, but it's kind of lost some of its glory with the lineups and it has a very small window, and it is dangerous because of the altitude and the extreme weather and the cold. There is a good chance you could die doing it just because it's such a miserable location on the planet. And you can't even get up or down. It's only one fixed rope. So if you want to come, there's one up and one down. You're kind of stuck, right? It's not like you have your own free range of the mountain, like some of the mountains I do, where you can just do whatever you want. But I'm hoping to get some of those people and take them to volcanoes to do not just climb the highest point on the planet, but do a world's first over a volcano and build them their own custom heat suit. And they can keep it afterwards, as a trophy. They have this cool suit that no one else in the world has. It's their own. We designed it just for them, right? So that's my goal, is to kind of get into that area of doing cool expeditions for other people, kind of thing. And yeah,
that's awesome. And then mixing that, I guess, with the commercial stuff. Doing for TV.
Yeah, and of course, if they have ideas in the TV stuff, we have a TV show right now that we're trying to pitch. That has volcanoes in it and has me in it as part host of the show, doing some cool stuff and doing some stuff no one's ever done and exploring places no one's ever explored. So there's this, there's a few things on the go. One location, I think everyone I didn't always share it, but now I think enough people know about it. There's a volcano in one of the islands on the exterior of Antarctica that no one's ever been to. We've only seen it from satellite imagery, and there's some satellite pictures of it and infrared images of it showing there's a lava lake in the bottom of this volcano, but no one's ever climbed the mountain. No one's ever looked into the volcano. No one's ever gone into it. So one of the things I would like to do, I'm trying to plan out, is an expedition to go there to do the first descent up the mountain. So it's a snow-covered, obviously, climb. So do the first ascent up the mountain, then rig the volcano crater, and then go down into it and get as close to the lava as we can get,
Yeah.
And we have no idea what to expect because no one's ever been there. So that's a cool expedition. But again, it's Antarctica. So Antarctica is probably the priciest place on in the world to try and plan an expedition, because it's so remote and so hard. Everything costs so much, and we'd need, helicopters would be involved and stuff. So, and we'd be taking a boat to get. It's just a very expensive expedition. But as we were saying to other people, more people have been on the moon than have been. No one's 11 people have been on the moon. No one's been on this volcano, right? So. And no one's even I think a few people have probably set foot on the island. That's it. No one's ever climbed the mountain.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. And it's only been a few years since they realized that is a volcano with an active volcano with lava in it. So that's a cool spot. That's on my bucket list to go do.
Nice. And now, I mean, I guess looking back on all these years of and having all that experience with ziplining and rigging and expeditions, I mean, are there things that you do differently now than when you first started doing these trips?
I just have more experience, I think, so I can plan better for problems that are probably going to arise. And working in these countries, a lot of the issues that I'm worried about are not rigging issues. They're not the road systems. It's logistical nightmares that can come up. And Ethiopia, we have to have armed guards with us with machine guns, to go travel. We have to get permission from the chief of the area, which is like a native chief, to go where we want on the volcano. And we have to hire some of his guards to go with it's just, there's those kind of things. And like Congo has a really interesting volcano, but again, the Congo in Africa the country itself is very unstable. Nicaragua has a really nice volcano. Country is very unstable. And the thing is, that's why we're allowed to do these volcanoes, because they couldn't care less about because they have other bigger problems going on to worry about volcanoes. Like Hawaii has amazing volcanoes, but you can't never do anything there because all they worry about is their volcano. Okay, they have no other problems to really worry about that big. Is they just don't want to get bad press with some guy dying in a volcano, right? So they don't let anyone go there or do anything that the scientists can go there. We always bring or I always try to, if budget allows, bring a volcanologist with me, an expert on that location and that volcano, and sometimes the countries as well will give us a volcanologist, one of their volcanologists, so we can also get important information or implant stuff for the volcanologists that normally they wouldn't have access to.
Okay.
But Hawaii is one of those ones where it's almost, we haven't even bothered to contact them for, maybe if this TV show goes on pitching, maybe we will, but most likely the answer will be no.
Just because it's just too restricted, right? And
well, restricted. And the stuff I like to do, again, everyone says no. Whenever I say something, everyone's like, the answer is no. Then I'm always like, oh, I think I go wear them down. Or I usually have to go and meet the person and show them what I've done. They see a couple pictures on social media or in a bio of what I've done, and they're like, no, we don't want that guy at our volcano. We have no idea what he's going to do. He's like a little, it's not, I wouldn't say reckless at all. Everything I do is just as safe there as I do here. Just the environment is so extreme. It just looks unbelievable, right? And like I had one expedition I planned, and I contacted the government agency that controlled that, and they were just like, well, we were gonna let yes, we let people do expeditions of their volcano and everything, and you have to follow all these procedures. That's great. And then I sent them our bios, and I didn't really even say what we wanted to do, and then they wrote back, I don't think we're ready for an expedition of your magnitude yet. That was like, we're not ready for you to come yet, because that's just crazy stuff. So I'm like, I think if I went and met with them, because I've had a lot of TV stunts and movie stunts where, like I've been flown to China to work on the buildings in China and some of these things never go, so they never actually happen. Like the one in China got shut down because it was a government thing. Trump did something that offended the Chinese government, and they said, that stunt that they were going to do on that building in Chengdu that they asked permission for, no.
Oh wow! So they just
it was an American stunt to promote the U.S. and Trump did something that offended the government, so the government said no, and then it got canceled at the last second. So, but anyway, so again, I was flying over to China, meeting with building people, the building owners and engineers, talking about what we want to do on the outside of their building and how this will work and the loads we're going to apply to it, and then I'll do demonstrations sometimes. Like this one, I was going to put handholds on the granite because it's a smooth build. The section of this building was really smooth, and they wanted this professional climber, to climb up the building in this one, but had to go over this one section that no one can climb on. I was like, I know the guys they're always like, oh, he's a professional climber. I'm like, yes, but he's not literally Spider-Man, right? Like he can't hold on to a smooth granite. He's not a gecko. He doesn't have like special fingertips or something. He's just strong, and you give him a couple, like a quarter. Yeah, he could pull on that little quarter, and he can get a lot of pull on there, more than anyone else in the world. But if you give him nothing, he can't get up. So I was going to go down this building and actually adhere on these climbing holds that are low profile, and they'd be painted to be invisible to match the granite. So he's 400 feet in there when he gets to that point. So no one's going to be able to see I've actually installed these holds for this guy on this granite wall, so he could climb where they want him. Like they have a very specific route, like commercials, TV shows. It's like, he has to climb right here, and this is the route, and he's going right beside this thing, and the camera angle is going to be here. So the only way we could do it is that. So I had to go there and show them how I could install these climbing holds on the wall, and then how I could remove them from the granite without scarring or damaging the building anyway. But then once I go there, I have my little box. I open it up. Here's some granite slabs, and here's the holds on there. I'm going to show you right now. I'll remove it with this razor blade and a hammer, and then clean off the glue that it's on there, like with the razor. And then it's like, see, it's beautiful. And then they're all like, oh, okay, yeah, that's okay. So it's always like, no. And then I'm like, okay, let me come and explain how I can do this. Why no one else can do this, but I can do it. And then they're like,
if you just chip on the way at them, and then
well, yeah, you kind of just don't give up. And like the helmet that we're using in the lava suit, the first answer was, I was like, I want to use your helmet in my lava suit because my volcano suit. And they're like, no. And I was like, that's a small answer. Why not? And they're like, oh, well, what you're doing is just beyond what this helmet's capable of. I'm like, well, what's the helmet capable of? And I have a friend of mine in the fire department that's tested that helmet to destruction. They literally set it on fire and they blowtorched it and they melted it. And he said it could handle what I want to do. And they said it couldn't. But then again, I talk to them. I tell them I've been to the pit of fire before. I've done the volcanoes, and what's the temperatures I'm going to be in, and what kind of safety measures are we taking? And then they're like, okay, give a good argument. We'll give you a couple helmets, right? Right. So then they mail me these helmets. They're like really super expensive, and they're all customs. Like, what do you want? What kind of visor do you want? What color do you want? What suspension system do you want in this helmet? So like they're like pretty cool, right? So I was like, oh, so it's great. I just don't give up. I kind of just not annoyingly pushing people, but I'm kind of like, well, again, I don't see why not yet. So until you convince me that your helmet's not good enough, I think it is, because I've been told that it will work for what I want. And then I can also do it. I have other designs now to protect their helmet even more. So I can do, because some of my new ideas, I want the heat suit to take battle damage, because I've done a lot of testing with the heat suit and other testing, and I'm not doing anything in my mind. I'm not even going close to where I want to be yet. Because the heat suit's not even melting yet. When the heat suit starts to be melting off of me as I'm doing it, okay, now I'll start being happy. Like, okay, now we're starting to get close to the limits of what I can do, because this heat suit, it's starting to melt. That visor is starting to melt, and the metal melts off the heat suit at 700 degrees Celsius. So when the metal starts coming off the heat suit, then I'll be like, okay, we're getting close to what we should probably be our limit for now, right?
That's amazing. What's the best way of people following like what you're up to, and
So we have a few different social media things, but probably Facebook and Instagram with One Axe Pursuits, which is our local climbing company in Ontario here. They're probably good to follow because they have they're most updated to see what we've done. And you can also follow us on our One Axe Extreme website and social media. So Instagram and Facebook on One Axe Extreme, but I personally update that, and I'm not very good at doing that. So it's not like, it's like sporadic. Once in a while you'll get a post, but also the hard thing is a lot of stuff I'm working on, I can't talk about it until it's happened already. And it's like, oh, it's already been on TV now. Oh, here it is. I'm not even allowed to tell you it's going to be on. I can say there's something coming up this month on this channel, but I can't actually say what it is because it's their baby, right? They have to release it first, and then afterwards I'm allowed to like send a link to it. And then and some of the stuff, like a lot of the commercials and TV shows, by the time they release it, I have no clue so I just don't talk about it because I don't know if I'm allowed to yet. It's like, I think almost everything I do on commercials and TV shows, I never even see the final product half the time. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's been like 5 years. Okay, I'll post something of that IMAX commercial I did, because I'm sure it's gone out by now, right? But I've never actually personally seen it. So anyway, so I updated it with our talk today. And there's little things here and there. I think there's a little shot of me standing in fire in that volcano heat suit I designed for an upcoming documentary, which is a documentary or TV show, which I was talking about. But other than that, I can't say much more because we're trying to pitch it still to different networks. So it's still kind of secret. And then once it does get taken, it'll still be secret, because then we'll be filming the show for a year and that. So it's hard. I feel. And some of the stuff I can talk about one-on-one, but I can't on social media because I can, whose ear is going to hear it. So one-on-one, we can talk I can tell you a lot more than I can on social media. I can show you a lot of cool pictures that I can't show. I just can't do it on social media. It could go back, you know, never know where it's going to go. It could go to competitor or you know, competitive TV network or something. But yeah, so Instagram and Facebook, One Axe Pursuits or One Axe Extreme. Our One Axe Extreme website has the coolest, has a lot of images of some cool stuff I've done, and some of the some of the companies I've worked with on our product, are kind of like a client list and stuff. So point you in that direction. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Fred, thanks so much. It's been really great having you on the show, and yeah, we'll definitely, as and when like the footage or the photos can come out, we'll be keeping an eye.
Awesome.
Cool.
Great. Thanks,
man.